This is TWIS, This Week in Science episode number 572, recorded on Wednesday, June 22nd, 2016. Natural or nuts? Hey everyone, I am Dr. Kiki, and tonight on TWIS we are going to fill your heads with mutations, old farmers, and crabby tricksters. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Nothing you have experienced will prepare you for what you are about to hear. That is, unless you have been listening for a while, in which case your mind is fully prepared to encounter the unknown, to delve brain first into the abyss of human knowledge and step out the other side wet with insights into the inner workings of nature. To the untrained brain, the journey may seem wrought with hidden dangers. The landscapes unfamiliar, the destination uncertain, the weather at once carefree and whimsical, and also rot, if I can use rot again here without seeming to over-embellish, weather rot with a wild foreboding and a willful wrath for whimsical ways. It is as if everything we could learn could in some way be used against us. It's not the knowledge of the unknown that makes this so, but knowledge of ourselves. And in knowing the ways that man can hurl hardships at his fellow human, we pause, we hesitate to speak what truths we know, what mysteries we have lain bare, what new knowledge we have now wrought forth from the abyss. Yes, there I used it again. For fear can be used against us, but do not fear, for fear is the most formidable force that can be used against you. Never greater than when it finds you without the knowledge to understand. Never give in to fear. Instead, listen to the carefree and whimsical voices as they guide you through yet another episode of This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science. What's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science.
Good science to Kiki and Blair. And Britt, we have a guest today. Britt, welcome.
Yes, welcome everyone. Welcome, Britt. Hello to Justin and Blair and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We have another great episode in store for you today. Lots of science news and an interview. It's going to be fantastic. The stories I've brought involve stories about CRISPR, always CRISPR. CRISPR alert! So exciting. Zika, because Zika is always on the top of our minds when it comes to travel these days. And zombie genes, because zombies. We also have an interview with Britt-Marie Hermes about her experiences in naturopathy and why she left. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, I am sure. Justin, what do you have for us?
I've got high history, ancient farming, and robot nursery rhymes.
Robot nursery rhymes for robots or by robots?
For robots. Nursery rhymes for robots.
There we go. All right, Blair, what did you bring for the animal corner?
I brought old Kakas, kidnapper crabs, and hermaphrodites.
Okay. Awesome. All right, everybody. Top of the list, we are going to dive into some CRISPR news. So researchers at the University of Pennsylvania are working on developing a CRISPR treatment for cancer that involves T cells, and it's been approved for human testing by a federal biosafety and ethics panel. The experimental treatment still needs approval from the medical centers that would run the study, which would also be UCSF and some others, and the FDA here in the United States. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing about this study, we talked about the research that these University of Pennsylvania researchers are doing last year, because what they do is they take T cells from people who have blood cancers, leukemia and others, take the T cells and then mutate them once they've left the body. So they they clip out or change them a little bit, kind of wash them up, make them act a little bit different so that they can attack the cancer more effectively. And with previous treatments and previous methodologies of changing how these T cells work, they've discovered that it works a little bit, but they become less and less effective over time. It just doesn't last very long. So the cancers come back. It's not a 100% cure, and it's also, there's a lot of issues with removing the T cells from somebody's body and then putting them back in. It's not necessarily a carefree and wild, happy experience. So this new idea that they're using, they'll be using CRISPR with, will be with the intention of clipping, of targeting two very specific genes. And the genes that they would be looking for, one is called PD-1, and it's a checkpoint molecule that sits on the surface of a lot of cancer cells. And so when a T cell connects to the cancer cell, it recognizes that PD-1 and the PD-1, they bind together. But the PD-1 then disables the T cell. And so the T cells then are at that T cell. It's a trap. Yeah. And so the cancer cell's basically like, hey, oh, you're cute. Ha-ha, I got you. I got you. It's a trap. So they're going to edit the receptor gene out so the T cells won't have the PD-1 receptor anymore. They won't be able to link up to the cancer cells in that way. And so the T cells will stay active and keep fighting the cancer. So there are other natural receptors on the T cells that are called endogenous TCR. And there's been some of these other studies that have shown that you can remove the TCR to get these engineered T cells to just function better. And they've removed the PD-1 gene and the endogenous TCRs in mice in previous studies. They've reduced the size of lung tumors much more than the T cells in previous experiments that did not use CRISPR. So CRISPR is better at getting at these genetic targets within the T cells, more efficient, and will allow T cells to attack the cancer more effectively. And this will now potentially, if it gets approval from the FDA and from these research centers, be the first instance of CRISPRized cells being used in medicine in the world. Well, legally in the world. Yeah. So this is a very, very exciting moment. There are some other there are some other labs that are looking at different studies that involve CRISPR and are still working on approval, but this might happen first. It might happen very quickly. Moving on from that one, I have another really interesting study that is similar. However, it kind of is working in the opposite direction. We talk about CRISPR and its Cas9 partner. And Cas9 enables the system that's used. It doesn't necessarily have to be CRISPR that it's used with, but it enables, it's a tuning system, basically. It enables the system to discriminate between target sites. And there's a method that George Church's lab has developed that allows Cas9 to discriminate between two target sites that differ by a single nucleotide polymorphism, which, as we've talked about before, is how most mutations occur in people that cause disease and disability. So single nucleotide polymorphisms are one of the main drivers of disease issues. And if we could start fixing those, changing them somehow, it could be a wonderful tool in our arsenal, our medical arsenal. So what they have done is they've not just gone, okay, we've got this system that can discriminate between these single nucleotide polymorphisms. They've gone a step further, and they've created a Cas9 system that prevents mutations at single nucleotide sites. And so the implications of this system are that it could potentially be used within bacterial systems to prevent antibiotic resistance. It could be used to create prevention systems that work against cancer-causing mutations. It could be used to create systems in, say, our crop plants that prevent the spread of undesired traits. So it could be like, and what they say they want it to be like is like an immune system for the genome, stopping mutations at the source.
That would be pretty great.
Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, the whole.
That would solve a lot of problems.
I mean, it's a fascinating idea to be able to. I mean, we usually think about, okay, going in and fixing stuff later, but what if you could prevent it from happening in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this study, it's still being reviewed. This is published in the bioRxiv preprint server for biology. So it's not a paper that has been reviewed and published yet, but it does come out of a very reputable lab. I'm sure it will be reviewed, and they will deal with any issues that arise as they come. But it's interesting that they're putting this idea out there and they're developing this system that could be robust throughout many different species.
So what do you think? Are you ready to sign up for some CRISPR-Cas9?
Not yet, no.
I bet Justin's ready to be in a experimental group, aren't you?
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this Cas9, it definitely is. Things are becoming more efficient. They're getting better, but we talk about these off-target effects. And for the CRISPR cancer T-cell study that I mentioned first, and for this one, that is one of the biggest issues with the entire gene editing system is the specificity and the effectiveness. So how accurate is it? Is there other stuff getting targeted on accident, and what issues could arise from that? Is there just not enough of an effect taking place because it's just not hitting the target enough times?
Right.
So
and those receptors on the T cells got to be there for some reason, right? Like, not just hanging out for no good.
Well, it's not for no good reason. It's to recognize. It's basically a recognition system. However, the problem is the cancer cells are subverting that.
Right. No. Right. So
for their own survival.
Block it long term. Like there's something else that it's good for, right? So there is. But right now, if right now you've got cancer, that's all you care about is addressing that. So there's reason to take these big risks when there's a greater risk involved.
Certainly, yeah. So anyway, those are my fun genetic editing stories from this week. There's really cool stuff happening right now. It's like, how is this happening so quickly?
The future is now.
Yeah, the future is yesterday. I mean, that's our.
I'd rather have CRISPR-Cas9 than a flying car, I'd tell you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Who was
better.
it? Isn't there some billionaire that has been developing a new flying car model? I read something about that recently. Yeah.
We have these things called planes.
Oh yeah. And now there's the single person drones. So instead of just drones that are driving around taking video or just flying around everywhere, now they have a single person cab on top. So
what could go wrong?
Little drone rides across town.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. I don't know. All right. That's it for me for the first part of the show. Justin, what stories do you have?
I've got 3 quick here. So since prehistory, whenever you determine that would have been, the Himalayan mountain range has presented a sort of barrier to populations really going there and living there. It's very cold. It's high altitude. It's got all sorts of issues, right? But also the valleys through it and around the Himalayas have been major trade routes for years and years, hub of activity, but we don't really know where the high altitude people came from. We understand they're acclimatized to that high environment, They don't. What is it? Is it apoxia? What is the thing, Kiki, that you get when you try to go where the
Hypoxia, yeah, when there's not enough oxygen.
there's not enough oxygen, but
Yeah.
they have genetic changes that allow them to live at this altitude. So this is they were going to kind of look at this in a multi-university collaboration that included University of California, Merced. Researchers conducted the first ancient DNA investigation of Himalayan peoples. They generated genomic data for 8 individuals, ranging in time from the earliest known human settlements to the establishment of the Tibetan Empire. So this is like 3,000 and as recent as 1,200 years ago. And I guess there was some sort of controversy, because when archaeologists and anthropologists were sort of looking at the Himalayan peoples going back in time, they noticed there were some pretty dramatic cultural changes. There was huge shifts in the way the cultures did things, the religious aspect, the cultural aspect. Things changed greatly over 3 sort of distinct periods of time. And so there was a lot of talk that perhaps there was other peoples who have gone up there and then gotten these genetic changes or acclimatized in some way. Because if you just look at the artifact record, or even they've made arguments for some morphological bone structure changes over time, it kind of looked like there were different peoples that were populating this area. So they did this investigation. And the study shows the Himalayan mountain region was colonized by East Asians of high altitude origin, followed by millennia of genetic stability. So the folks that are there have been there and were likely colonized by other peoples even of high altitude to begin with. Right?
So they started at a fairly high altitude even.
Yes.
They were high altitude before it was cool to be high altitude.
Right. So so they had 8 of these prehistoric individuals across these 3 time periods, and they were most closely related to the contemporary highland East Asian populations, Sherpas, Tibetans. So they're thinking, the cultural changes may be because they were in the midst of a trade route, and they sort of took on the passing cultures that would come through. But the peoples themselves weren't changing out.
I wonder if they weren't changing out because it's so high altitude and just hard to
probably
get
just can't
there.
survive. You probably just can't survive there for very long. So they also said that the most prehistoric individuals and contemporary Tibetan populations shared beneficial mutations in the 2 genes which are implicated in the adaptation to low oxygen conditions found at the high altitude. So pretty strong evidence, and I kind of think that there may have been some sort of political pressure to come to the conclusion that the people of Tibet might not be the original people of the Tibetan highlands. There may have been some pressure to come up with evidence to say that lowlanders originally, or somebody else had originally populated the area, right? But nope, the Tibetans have been there since as far back as we can tell. Anybody's lived there.
Which is interesting because of the genetic clock dating the mutations for high altitude survival. They're one of the what's thought to be most recent examples of adaptation in human evolution, and so that these genes have been around for just a little more than 3,000 some odd years.
Mm-hmm. But as far back as they can tell, these genes are there. So,
yeah.
We've still got to work on not work on the clock. Maybe this is correct. I mean, this is the oldest population we have, and if it's matching that data, then that's great. I've got another one, actually, though, that does match reverse genetic data. So 2 things, though. First, we got the oldest evidence of domesticated rice has been found in China, and it's about 9,000 years old. The discovery was made by a team of University of Toronto archaeologists, sheds new light on the origin of rice domestication. They found ancient domesticated rice fragments in the lower Yangtze Valley in Zhejiang province, China. They observed about 30% of the rice plant material, primarily bases, husks, leaves, that sort of thing that they were finding, were not wild but showed signs of purposeful cultivation to produce rice plants that were durable, suitable for human consumption, and the rice plant remains that they found also had characteristics of Japonic rice, the short grain rice used in sushi that is now heavily cultivated in Korea and Japan. So this may really be a discovery that's showing the origin of rice, period. Like this, it's the oldest one we have. So right now it's that pinpoint in time. But this could be it. 9,000 years old rice. Well, this is an incredible find. Another team of researchers has found an agricultural site, and you're not going to believe this, dates back 25 to 30 million years, which is far, far, far further back than any humans were thought to have engaged in agriculture, and still it's way further back than we think. Because this was not humans, these are termites. Team led by James Cook University's Associate Professor Eric Roberts discovered in his find, researchers, let's see, the oldest example of fungus gardens within fossil termite nests from the Great Rift Valley of Africa. Fungus farming termite colonies cultivate fungi in gardens and subterranean nests or chambers, helping to convert plant material into a more easily digestible food source for the termites. What's very interesting about this is scientists had previously used DNA from modern termites to estimate the origin of termite fungus farming behavior, and they put it back 25 to 30 million years. And this site is, I guess, about 31 million years. So it's right, like right there. Pretty awesome. It teaches us a little bit about the termites, yes, and also there's this may have radically changed the landscapes of the Great Rift Valley at the time, because this made it so that termites could decompose dry wood much more effectively, much more efficiently, and may have sort of transformed the terrain over some millions of years. But it's also a fantastic confirmation of a data point for that sort of DNA reverse time engineering, figuring out how far back things may have developed through the biological clock. So very interesting in that respect.
Yeah, it's fascinating to be able to take things back, take that biological clock backwards, and be able to determine that these termites were farming and doing their fungal gardening millions of years.
And it also, I mean, and it did sort of what it did for humans too. It allowed them to, it allowed both fungi and termites to sort of leave the valley. It gave them a new ecological niche that they could prosper in. So termites now can be found pretty much all over the world, but maybe it was largely because of this ability developed some 31 million years ago, or at least that's the oldest that we've seen. So it's the cradle of termite agriculture.
I think it's very interesting to see that the DNA that they had used to estimate the origin, and then now this fossil evidence was so right on. It's very encouraging to see that kind of results.
Results away. Do you guys know what time it is?
I believe it's that time once again for what's the segment called? Oh yeah, Blair's Animal Corner.
She loves our creature, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet animals. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels.
What you got, Blair?
I have some really interesting dating advice from the natural world. Are you ready for this?
Uh-oh.
Oh, we should call this Blair's Dating Advice Corner.
Yes. Dear Blair? No.
Dear Blair.
So, first of all, here's a not so successful tactic for how to woo a female. If you are a male banana fiddler crab, there are kind of two ways of trying to get a female to lay eggs in your burrow. The first is to do a very nice display and then go into your burrow as if to say, follow me. That's one way. The other way is to do your nice little dance, step to the side, let the female go into the burrow to inspect the burrow, and then trap her in there.
Oh, jeez.
So here's the question, is why would a fiddler crab trap a female in the burrow if she's not always going to lay her eggs in the burrow if you trap her there? Well, it turns out that they actually have more success trapping the females, even though a lot of the time the females won't go in if the male hasn't gone in yet. They have a higher success rate of the females actually laying eggs in the burrows if they trap her in there.
The females are just like, I guess I'm here.
Yeah. So this is the reason I found this study particularly interesting, is that this is one of those situations that I've talked about on the show before where there are multiple drastically different courtship techniques that both persist in a population. So in this case, they both persist because there's an advantage to having the female go in first, because then you can trap her in there until she lays her eggs. But females go in less. So you have less females going in, but a higher percentage of success once they're inside. If you go in first as a male, a female is more likely to go in, but she is also less likely to stay. So in this case, you have two drastically different methods that both have merits for success in a population. So this is kind of an interesting conversation to have, because it's very easy to think about evolution and sexual selection in terms of a certain trait that is selected for and wins out. And then you see that more than others, and that's the trait that's selected for time and time again. But I think it's important to look at these studies that shed light on situations that aren't like that, when there are multiple strategies that are selected for in different ways. And that's how you can have different tactics within one population or one species that both persist despite selective pressure.
I wonder if there are more and more male crabs in the population who trap females as a result of this.
Right. So that's the thing, is that as far as we can tell, there's, like I was saying, there's merits to both. So they have seen that there is a higher percentage of crabs trapping than not, but they're fairly even, and that's because there's still a benefit to not trapping the females as well, and that is that you'll get more females in your burrow to begin with.
I figure it would be a learning curve. Like, you did the whole thing where you walked in, like, come on, check it out. And then, like, the lady crabs would keep walking in and walking out, and you'd be like, gosh, this is so frustrating. Every time a lady crab goes in, she just walks right out again.
Right. But then, so this whole study started because most fiddler crabs, they go in first, and then the female follows them after they do this courtship display. But these fiddler crabs were seen stepping aside, waiting for the female to go in. And many, many times, she was like, no, I am not going in first. You're going to trap me in there. And so she didn't go in. And the researchers were just fascinated by this, trying to figure out why on earth the male would take that strategy. And that's when they discovered that then they would use that advantage when she finally would go in to trap her in there.
So, and then how does this trapping work? How do you catch lady crabs?
It's basically just a body block. So they just block the exit, and so the females will eventually just give up and lay their eggs, and then they're allowed to leave.
Lay your eggs and you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting thing to watch over generations. You know, do females become more choosy because they get trapped and give up their eggs because that's an energetic loss. So will it drive more females to be more choosy and to enter fewer burrows? Also, will it drive males to be more likely to trap females over time?
Yeah, and kind of the extra variable in this is that the reason females go into these burrows at all is that part of the courtship display is the part where these females go into the burrow to inspect the burrow to decide if it's worthy of eggs.
That's the first mistake.
Right. So they have to go in there, whether it's first or second. They have to go in to check it out because they're not just going to lay their eggs anywhere. They have to find a good spot for it. So it's this kind of give and take of which works out better. Will it take a while and then the females will get wise and just stop going in first altogether? Time will tell.
Time will tell. What's your fishy story?
Well, so speaking of releasing eggs, here is a much more give and take style relationship with a type of fish called a chalk bass. So chalk bass are from the Atlantic, and they're this very pretty blue, and they are hermaphrodites. So not only, here I have a bunch of pictures of chalk bass up here, not only are they hermaphrodites, they're also quite pretty. Google it if you're listening. Chalk bass, C-H-A-L-K, bass. But they also, so they're pretty, they're hermaphrodites, and they're monogamous. And this isn't the kind of monogamy that we often talk about where there's a monogamy for a season. This is lifelong monogamy.
Really?
And yes.
Wow.
And in this study that was taken off the coral reefs of Panama from the University of Florida was actually a married couple that did a 10-year survey of these fish near Panama. And over those 10 years, all of the original chalk bass couples remained together for the duration of the study until one or both of them disappeared from the study site. So every single couple maintained through the full 10 years unless one of them died or disappeared. So, yeah, so the animals that actually follow this true monogamy, that it's only about 3 to 5% of animals that we've found. And it's really fascinating to us as behavioral researchers and zoologists, but also as people who fancy ourselves monogamous. Generally, we find it pretty interesting how this stuff works out because on the whole, 95 to 97% of the time, monogamy does not work out in species. So looking at how this works, so first of all, it's a hermaphrodite couple, and they don't actually pick who plays the male and who plays the female. It goes back and forth up to 20 times each day. They switch off being the male and the female.
So they're like they're dating. Their dates are always Dutch.
Yes, that's exactly. You hit the nail on the head, Kiki. So the way this works is that one only produces as many eggs as the other. So if you give me 5 eggs, I will make 5 eggs. If you give me 20 eggs, I will give you 20 eggs. And that's because, remember, in sexual reproduction, the egg is the more expensive thing energetically. That's the valuable item. So I don't want to give up eggs if you're not going to give me as much as I'm going to give you. And so the chalk bass actually, they alter their output of eggs relative to each other during the lifelong relationship.
That's wild.
Yes. And so they, instead of bailing on a cheapskate partner, they will just give them what they're getting, and then it's kind of self-correcting over time. I will mention,
becomes a vicious cycle.
Well, but that's not beneficial to either party, right? It's not beneficial to either party if you're getting stingy with your eggs. So as soon as that that dynamic works itself out, then there's this pretty fair split. And the other thing that's particularly interesting about this is that they will also philander, but only when the balance is uneven. So if one fish gave another 5 eggs and I have 20, I'll give the other 15 away to other suitors, but I'll come right back to my partner at the end of the day.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there really is this very intense give and take over this lifelong relationship. And the married couple that studied these fish said that the bond between monogamous animals has had an impact on their marriage. Quote, I think the get what you give and egg resources exchanged with pairs result, along with the potential for both positive and negative feedback within partnerships, were very insightful to both of us. Not even one of the original pairs that I observed switched mates while its partner was still alive. That strong matching between partners and the investment into the partnership was surprising. So after 10 years scuba diving looking at fish, hermaphroditic fish, these two took a lesson in equality and in partnership.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we take it down to the basics of what's actually going on, you know, it's similar to the female fiddler crabs with placing their eggs in a burrow. You know, these hermaphrodites are both going to be giving an equal energetic input to the relationship. So it's a power balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and once they have that balance, when they have that balance of power, everything's fine. And if they lose the balance of power, then it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, so everybody take a minute if you're in a relationship and think about your balance of power.
Yeah, but we see this not just in mating systems, but like also in social animals in general. So it's like vampire bats, you know, regurgitating food for other bats that have not been able to find food.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
If those bats that are not finding food are just taking, the other bats just stop giving to them. It's a balance of that give and the take and the cost and the benefit. And so it's really interesting to see something like this evolve through natural selection, that these systems do come about.
Yeah, and when two animals, what makes this so interesting too is that these two fish, they have the exact same resources to contribute because they're both hermaphrodites. So they can contribute to the relationship in the exact same way. So it is so easily measurable. And that's the problem with these single-sex individuals, is it's much harder to measure what is an equal output.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's another little nugget to think on, I think.
Absolutely.
Is it's easy to see with hermaphrodites.
Yeah. Well, thank you for Blair's Dating Corner with Blair and fish and crabs. Oh my gosh, that didn't work as well as I wanted it to.
So later, give your loved one a bushel of eggs. That's what we've learned today.
Give them some eggs. Give your partner some eggs. That's right. It is time for us to take a quick break. This is This Week in Science. When we return, we are going to be joined by Britt-Marie Hermes, and we're going to talk about naturopathy, naturopathy, I don't even know. Not science-based medicine. Well, we're actually going to be talking about science-based medicine. That's what we're going to be talking about. And so I hope you will stick around to hear about why she left the profession that she spent time training to become accredited in. This is This Week in Science. Stay tuned for more.
Explain the things you heard before.
Hey everyone, if you go to YouTube, it would be fabulous if you would subscribe to the This Week in Science YouTube channel. Help us hit our 10,000 subscriber goal. We're trying to hit 10,000. We are getting there inch by inch, subscriber by subscriber. You're helping us reach that goal, and we really would appreciate you to become a part of our YouTube channel subscribers. Please do that. Go to YouTube, search for This Week in Science, and subscribe to our channel. TWIS also has merchandise that you might enjoy, so please head over to twis.org and look for the Zazzle link in the main header bar. All you have to do is click on that link. It'll take you to our store where we have all sorts of designs and logo-laden objects, things that you might like to wear or carry to the store, like a tote bag, or put your mouse upon, like a mouse pad, or drink your coffee in, like a coffee cup. These things all make sense, right? They'll say TWIS all over them, and you will enjoy them, and you'll help TWIS out in the process if you purchase these items. So head to twis.org, click on our Zazzle link, and support us by buying some wonderful TWIS goods. TWIS is also supported directly by listeners just like you. You executive produce our show. When you support us financially through your donations, you're basically telling us you like what we do and you want us to keep doing it. You want us to reach more people, you want us to grow, and you want to help be a part of that. Your donations pay for equipment that we need to buy to help our show grow, or to help just keep it going, because equipment does get old and break. It also helps to pay for our bandwidth, for the hosting company that we use, and for all sorts of fun things that we try to do for the show. And we really appreciate any amount, whether it's $1 or whether it's $50. Every amount helps. Every amount helps make this show possible. We accept donations a couple of ways. We've got PayPal buttons all over our website. If you go to twis.org, click on those PayPal buttons. And we also use Patreon. Patreon, our website there is Patreon, patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Whatever your preference, head on over to the website, listen to the most recent episode, comment on the show, and make a donation. But if you can't afford a donation, don't worry about that. We can always use your help to get more people listening to and watching TWIS. And one thing that you can do to help us out, help grow the world of science appreciation, is just share TWIS with your friends. Right now, we have TWIS running live on Facebook, thanks to a wonderful guy named Brandon, who's helping us out by rebroadcasting the stream on Facebook. It's fabulous. He has something that he could help us out with, and it's stuff like that that really helps. Maybe, I don't know, make a flyer, put up stickers. I have no idea. Just make a tweet and say, listen to TWIS, and put a link out. It's pretty easy. Or all you have to do is just, if some people say, what are you listening to in those headphones? You go, TWIS. It's pretty awesome. You should check it out. It's that easy. And every time you do something like that, it helps. No matter how you want to support us or how you feel you can support us, we thank you for your support. We really could not do this without you.
Coming along, your chakra and chi are both growing real strong. Your cold disappeared after just 9 short days, all thanks to the words on the whole earth displays. Now due to the juices and pills and the creams, your body's lost toxins, whatever that means. You've stopped eating all of that sinister food. Your dinner tastes awful, so it's gotta be good. Still, you can't believe what a skeptic I am.
And we are back with more This Week in Science.
Yes, we are, and I would like to welcome Britt-Marie Hermes to the show. She is a Master's of Science student currently in Medical Life Science at the University of Kiel in Germany. Her research interests include inflammatory and genetic diseases like psoriasis and Crohn's. She's also interested in studying medical ethics and epidemiology. She's also a former, and I stress former, naturopathic doctor and natural health expert. She received a degree in naturopathic medicine from Bastyr University, held a 1-year residency, and worked as a naturopathic doctor for 3 years before deciding that naturopathy is not based in science, is ineffective, and dangerous. She started a petition with change.org to ask the government, the United States government, to end state naturopath licensure and insurance reimbursement. So she's active and doing some amazing stuff out there. Welcome to the show, Britt.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, good morning to you. Good evening to us.
Good evening to you. That's right.
We're all over the world right now. So can you talk a little bit about what drew you to naturopathic medicine to begin with?
Right. So of course I get asked this question a lot, and I've thought about it a lot, and I still don't have a great answer. And what I am exploring and what I'm realizing is that I have had a predisposition to this natural health, natural lifestyle for a long, long time. It started when I was young, definitely in my teenage years, with this idea that I could control or manipulate my health, which of course you can through exercise and diet and sort of the normal avenues of health improvement. But I took this one step further to actually jump into this idea that all pharmaceutical medication is bad, and anything that is natural must be healthy, must be better. So it started with this sort of classic logical fallacy, as a lot of the skeptics like to call it, and it is, because without much critical thought or analysis on my own, if it said natural on it, I thought, yes, this is what I want. This is the way. And this led me to making decisions for my own personal health, and then also it obviously guided my entire education and career for almost 10 years of my life.
Which is a significant portion of time to be working in a certain direction. And so let's move forward with this, because as I introduced, you've moved away from this area of study and work. What and I've read the articles, but maybe not everybody else has. So can you tell us what led you to finally decide, after those many years of practice and effort and I've been to school, I've done all this stuff. There's time and there's energy that you put in, and you feel aligned to something very deeply. What turned your head? What changed your mind?
There were a few key moments for me, but it's also important to remember, I paint the picture of sort of waking up to the reality that naturopathy is not science-based, but it was definitely a process that was sparked by a really horrible incident in my career as a naturopath, where I found myself accidentally involved in a really ethically yucky and criminal situation. So I was working for a licensed naturopath in southern Arizona, and he specialized and continues to specialize in treating patients with cancer with naturopathic approaches. And unfortunately, he chose to import and administer a non-FDA approved medication and to deliver this medication intravenously to his cancer patients. And he had a very busy and thriving practice, and I was new and had extra time on my hands, so I was assisting him in delivering this medication to patients. And when I didn't, so I sort of naively assumed that this medication was safe and approved, and that because a mentor and a boss was directing me in this, that this was an okay thing to do.
Yeah.
And when the medication stopped arriving, because it had been confiscated, we assume, by the FDA, I started to look into why a medication would be confiscated by the FDA, only to come to realize very quickly that this was not approved, and that is essentially a federal crime. And the fear of participating in something so again, like ethically terrible, and of course then the fear of hoping that I hadn't harmed patients accidentally and what this would now mean for my career, led me to explore naturopathy in a very different light. And this included speaking with a former mentor of mine who also happened to be a former president of the naturopathic professional organization called the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians. And this mentor strongly suggested to me that I should not listen to the advice of my newly hired lawyer, who had very clearly and unambiguously explained to me that I am now on notice. This is an official term where, as a professional, if you witness wrongdoing in your profession, you are on notice to report it, and if you don't, you are held at the same level of liability. And for this meant I had to, or should, report this information to the state regulatory board and then the state attorney general, both of which I did. The mentor, this former president of the AAMP, suggested that I should not do this. And he was encouraging me to actually stay in practice with my former boss and to make amends, and that I was really kind of blowing this whole thing up out of proportion. And that was actually harder than realizing that I had accidentally been administering the drug, because this said to me that, someone that I had trusted and really just thought very highly of was telling me that it was okay that we were doing this really legally questionable thing, and suggested that this is probably common, or perhaps common in the profession. And that's what I wanted to find out. I wanted to find out how many licensed naturopaths are actually doing something that is either in the gray zone or just clearly not ethical or clearly not legal, and what is the science and the evidence behind the way that naturopaths treat patients. And as proponents of science know, and what I learned, was that the science does not really support most of what naturopathy supports. Mm-hmm. So off I went. It was a long emotional journey, but so far it's been worth it.
And I mean, you're helping to describe how naturopathy is not science-based at this point in time. The things about it that do not have science-based evidence, but that, I mean, I'm sure you're getting a lot of blowback from your previous colleagues in the profession that you used to call your own.
Yeah, for certain. At first, there was a lot of personal attacks. I still get a lot of personal attacks, but now at least the balance is a bit offset, because I have enough people supporting me on the side of real medicine and the side of evidence, and I'm starting to see how my blog and how the information that I put out there is affecting real change. So when I get emails from students, for example, who want to become a doctor or who are interested in biomedical research and are looking at natural medicine or naturopathic medicine and find my blog, and now they're changing their mind about going to naturopathic school because they were, like me, believing the marketing by the organizations and the schools that they would actually receive real medical training.
Right. So can you tell a little bit about the medical training? Because did you go into it thinking I'm going to receive medical training like a medical professor or medical doctor and basically be a naturopathic doctor?
Yes. Yeah. So the schools, all of the accredited schools in North America say that the education that they teach is science-based, rigorous, and that it is on par with what a primary care physician would receive. Which, from where I am now, of course this is absurd, but at the time I really believed it. And it's the curriculum and the training is set up to sort of mimic or emulate medical training, but it's really not the same. So classes are named, the same sort of names as medical students receive in terms of basic science and clinical sciences. And a lot of the basic sciences are pretty close, but the clinical sciences, where you would get real medical information, real clinical information, is definitely not the same. And it's important to remember that these classes are taught by naturopaths. So they're not people who do research in the field or who are specialists or real experts in like gastroenterology or pulmonology, for example.
Which is the part that how do you square that circle? Like it's sort of like, okay, we're going to go right into the treatment phase of these, and it's medicine, whether it's whatever you know, whether it works or not, you're calling it medicine when you give something to somebody to treat something. But how do you skip that entire step of verifying, of having of utilizing the power of science to say, how is this sort of treatments, how are they claiming at least that they're immune to the scientific evidence of their effectiveness?
Yeah, this is a difficult question because when you're drinking the Kool-Aid, you don't see the world the same way, and so you can come up with answers to answer these difficult questions to make sure that your worldview doesn't change. And I think this is where the differentiation comes in between something that's science-based and something that's evidence-based. And so there's a lot of evidence for something that's scientifically implausible. Now the evidence isn't good, but this information is cherry-picked, and so I'm talking about homeopathy as an easy example, is that naturopaths can pick out studies to find evidence to support homeopathy, totally skipping the fact that this is scientifically implausible. And so squaring this, Justin, very special worldview tactics.
And I guess some of it does inherently attract people who are perhaps skeptical of pharma or doctors or the medical or scientific community. I can sort of get the idea that, gosh, it's, you know, people have been on the planet for, you know, these hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years through ancestry. They've lived this long. Why would we need this new element of medicine and science to engage our health? So heading in there, I can see it could be attracting people who don't have to drink the Kool-Aid once they get there, but we're sort of already had the worldview or the suspicion or the skepticality of science before they entered, and so then everything would just sort of fit. It would be like putting on more armament against having to look to the sciences.
Yeah, it's heavily influenced by certainly your personal experiences. I mean, that was the case for me with being diagnosed as a teenager with psoriasis and having older family members with a variety of autoimmune diseases and being really afraid that, oh gosh, now I'm going to have to take steroid medication for the rest of my life, and I'm going to get psoriasis just like my mom did, and then fall in line with all of these other autoimmune disorders, and this is scary. And then again, you know, you have these ideas that, you know, big pharma, for example, and conspiracy theories, and of course, it's not that simple. Not everyone who believes in naturopathic medicine believes in conspiracy theories, but there is a significant overlap with the ease in which you accept information uncritically, I would say.
I find it actually very surprising that there are a large number of very educated, intelligent people who fall into the line of I don't want to. I'm going to go all natural. I'm not going to vaccinate my child because their immune system it's natural. Their immune system's strong enough. They don't need vaccines. Those can be damaging. Or they fall into the line of, well, pharma is a big corporation, and so they don't have our interests at heart, and so they're just out to make drugs to make money, not to actually help anybody. There's this very interesting mental gymnastics that takes place.
Which doesn't have to be that gymnastic-y either. I mean, to be honest, let's cut to this. Big pharma and the medical profession, and, you know, like, you can look at things like the number of C-sections and say, okay,
sure,
there is undue influence by our medical profession in some places that could cause people to run screaming from them. So I understand that too. But I'm like, how does it, I get that that there's a desire to find this alternative path, but why not apply it? Why is there like, I'm assuming there's no research departments that are looking for the mechanical effects of these treatments, but rather just results with happy patients and testimonials.
Yeah, well, I just want to say something. I mean, Big Pharma gets a bad rap, and certainly they're not perfect. But the idea that because Big Pharma doesn't exist in naturopathy does not mean that naturopathy is immune to this type of lobbying and sort of corporation mindset. So the AAMP, for example, just hired 3 new people whose sole job is to increase licensure and scope of practice of naturopaths around the country. So they're doing this with PR people, and they have a state advocacy organizer. They definitely do aggressive lobbying. They do an annual lobbying event where naturopaths storm Capitol Hill and put a lot of effort and money into disseminating, in my opinion, misleading information about the training and the education of naturopaths and what naturopathic so-called doctors are capable of doing safely and effectively. And there are, the AAMP and some of these licensing efforts are being funded by supplement manufacturers and companies. And so there definitely is such a thing as big supplements. Mm-hmm. And naturopaths are selling these products, which are not regulated by the FDA in the same way that drugs are, out of their office and making direct profit. And so when the supplements that we sold out of every naturopathic office that I ever worked at was marked up significantly, from 65% to 100% markup. And not only was that, of course, profit for the clinic, but I also got a cut of this in my personal paycheck.
Commission, and so, you were selling. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a huge incentive to take people off pharmaceutical medications and to switch them to supplements that may not have safety or evidence behind them. Perhaps it's just like traditional use or belief system, or to add supplements to someone's regimen that they may not need. And we're finding out more and more that actually there might be a lot of negative effects from taking too many supplements, or maybe there's not even what the supplement says there is on the bottle, because of course without the same regulations, the labeling and the ingredients don't always match.
Right. Someone in the chat room was saying, he says, he doesn't know about all this. Whiskey Renegade was saying he doesn't know about all this stuff, but he would use treatments with strong results in, for say, example, Europe, that the FDA hasn't approved. And I know you recently made a blog post about ozone. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't actually know if this is a thing, but I've called this the European fallacy. So the idea that because something comes from Europe, it's somehow safer or better or more magical.
Well, actually, we do know that mattresses need to be made in Scandinavia. They need to be right? So there has to be a Swedish mattress, right? Like, there's certain regions that just better at one specific product or another.
Sure, but I don't think it's natural medicine.
No.
And ironically, I live in the country of basically the birthplace of naturopathy and homeopathy. And the start of these movements actually has some unsavory roots, and it's affiliated with the Nazi Party. But this is a whole other interesting statement. So ozone. So the way that naturopaths in the United States or in North America use ozone is basically for the treatment of anything, from cancer to chronic infection to autoimmune illness, and then to generally just this idea that patients need to stimulate the immune system because, I don't know, I guess without stimulation it doesn't work properly, or however they need to justify this. But this is even a phrase that I would use commonly as a naturopath myself, so to stimulate the immune system. And depending on where the naturopath is licensed and practicing, the naturopath will administer ozone in a variety of ways. So you can inhale it, it can be absorbed with the skin, you can sit in chambers and breathe it in, and then it can even be applied rectally, vaginally, and intravenously. So this is really bizarre. And some of the laws in some of the provinces in Canada, for example, have specific language to allow naturopaths to administer ozone this way. And ozone is a toxic gas. It takes a lot of energy to make. It's 3 oxygen molecules, and it's highly unstable. And it has been studied in Europe and in North America, and there's been no proven safe or effective medicinal use of ozone. And yet, naturopaths are so savvy at marketing that they have somehow convinced lawmakers in their areas to allow them to do this to patients legally in most cases. I mean, certainly naturopaths do things that they're not supposed to in unregulated areas, but I find that just absolutely fascinating. And it's not like North America is withholding the treatment of ozone from patients. I mean, it's unanimously decided thus far that there is no medicinal application for this, even if it is used by some quacky physicians in Europe.
So it sounds to me like,
and it's dangerous.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like there's really two sides of this, especially from what I'm seeing happening in the chat room, is that there's the question of whether a treatment is effective or not. But then there's this other side of whether or not a treatment can hurt you. And really, yes, it's true that there might be things that make it through and are approved by the FDA that come from Big Pharma that don't help you.
Yeah.
But chances are, if it's FDA approved, it's not going to kill you.
Chances are, yeah.
Chances are.
Unless you're really up against it and it's worth that risk,
Right. So there's kind of these are the two sides of it, and I think that it's worth looking at both. Is yes, will it work? Will it not work? But also, will it hurt me?
Right.
So
and
the
then
thing
there's
that,
Well, sorry, Justin.
It's okay.
Let Britt answer.
Yeah.
The thing that scares me about naturopaths deciding to use treatments that are not FDA approved is the idea that naturopaths feel, for whatever reason, that they can somehow assess the evidence and the safety and the research behind treatment X better than the entire agency of the FDA and oftentimes other regulatory agencies in other countries. And so, for example, the medication that I had been delivering to patients under my boss's orders is a medication called Ukraine that comes from a quacky sort of backyard pharmaceutical company in Austria. The chemist who made the drug is now facing criminal charges because it turns out that he was relabeling expired product and exporting this product to the United States amongst other countries. And it had been studied and up for approval in the European Union and Australia and North America. And all of these countries had decided that this medication was not safe and that it was possibly effective, but they had serious concerns about how it was being manufactured. And despite this information, naturopaths, like my former boss, decided that he could assess the evidence better, the safety better. And so that sort of blows my mind, that an individual who really hasn't been trained in science and took shortcuts through his or her medical education system could then say, yeah, I know what the FDA says, but I'm going to ignore that because I know better.
Yeah. And what would make this natural too? Because this is this other thing. Like, if you don't really know what's in it, there was some amazing. I think it was one of those USA Today sort of investigative things where they were looking into things that are labeled natural supplements, and one that was designed to help people relax and to be more calm, but it was all natural herbal supplement, had Prozac in it. Like that's a pharmaceutical, but it wasn't labeled in there. It was discovered and there's actually the NFL, National Football League, has created the Players Union has created a lab that does nothing but test supplements that they what they might be interested in taking. They send it off there, and it turns out a huge percentage of these have like a little bit of a steroid in it, or a little bit of this, or a little bit of that, things that could get them in trouble in their job. And because it became such an epidemic that people were getting drug screened and told that they were failing when they thought they were doing something all natural. So that whole chains of supply, then, if it's not also being regulated, means you really don't know what you're getting. Exactly.
Again, back to this cancer drug, because it just seems to be such an easy and all-inclusive example. So it was we were talking about it as a natural supplement, as a medication alkaloids being derived from a plant called chelidonium, and potentially these alkaloids do have anti-cancer effects. But these plant alkaloids were being mixed with a real chemotherapeutic drug. And so then, of course, the study, or the information is, what's having chemotherapeutic activity? Is it the drug that we know has chemotherapeutic activity and is used for chemotherapy purposes in some instances, or is it the fact that we're mixing it with this plant and now calling it natural? And so there's a real sort of like adultery of the terms here, and just a rebranding and remarketing how we think of things. And I tend to think of naturopaths as being highly skilled at doing this in general. I think they've rebranded and are redefining words like doctor and medical school to fit their training rather than to make sure that their training fits into the medical paradigm that already exists and is universally accepted to produce competent physicians.
And I know now with the rise of boutique insurance agencies, I know like in California there's an add-on for insurance this group called Medical One, for instance, and you can and they have medical doctors within their practices, but they also have naturopaths and osteopaths and acupuncturists and all sorts of things, and it's like, okay, you pay $100 extra for your insurance and you get to use their services. But they've kind of started pulling all of this stuff under the same umbrella without any extra definitions or any extra conversation about, okay, what are the appropriate treatments? And you can pick yourself at one of their practices. You can choose a naturopathic doctor over a medical school trained doctor.
I think this is one of the main dangers of licensing naturopaths. It's this perpetuation of misperceptions and a misunderstanding of what a naturopath is and how they are trained. So because naturopaths like to use words like attending a 4-year accredited medical school, or saying that they completed a medical residency, which is how I characterized my postgraduate training, we are confusing the public. And this is one of the things that my change.org petition is trying to get at, is that I really actually don't care if naturopaths are licensed, or if people still want to go to naturopathic school, or if someone wants to choose a naturopath for some aspects of their medical care. The problem for me is that when people make these decisions thinking that a naturopath is a doctor, or thinking that a naturopath attended medical school, and this just isn't the case. And it sounds like I'm being really nitpicky, but these points are vitally, critically important. So naturopaths are not attending medical school, they're attending naturopathic programs. The programs are accredited, but they're not accredited by the same agency that accredits medical school. So it's accredited, here's medical school, and then here's naturopathy, like way over here, operating in this totally other sphere. And we do a voluntary postgraduate training in some cases, but you don't have to, but it's not a residency. This is me spending time with a licensed naturopath and getting a very low salary and calling it extra medical training. And so when people, we all know that it's very difficult to make decisions when you're sick. We either know that from personal experience or from taking care of a loved one, and then you throw in something tricky like being on a budget for your medical care, or being pressed on time, or having an acutely ill child and you 7:30 in the morning and you need to get into a doctor now. And so I don't want people making decisions under pressure, Googling a naturopath's name and seeing the word physician and doctor coming up and thinking that they're getting real medical care. I think it needs to be very clear that this is alternative and not real medicine.
Well, and using your example of cancer, right, going through chemotherapy is It's tough. And if you've seen anyone that you know and love go through that process, if you are then faced with going through that process and you're told there's a natural alternative that doesn't have those drawbacks, that sounds pretty great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are naturopaths who are licensed and operating fully within their scope of practice who say things like, we have side effect free cancer treatment. We have all natural, proven, effective. I mean, these are almost like verbatim quotes.
Except for one. One.
That's not.
One slight side effect. You could die.
Dying from cancer, you mean?
Which
Look,
is that you still have cancer.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody should really feel too foolish for falling for this. I mean, from what I understand, this is why we don't have Steve Jobs here today.
It's exactly right. And he actually had a cancer that was treatable.
Right. So this isn't something that's just the gullible amongst us or the unintelligent amongst us that are falling for this. This is something that can affect some of the brightest minds amongst us. So I think it is serious, and I think if you did replace the term physician or doctor with something like sales, I think that people would have a different view of the type of treatment. They would sort of, it's not a fiduciary, but it's the what do you call it? The thing that doctors have, that they're supposed to take care of you. I'm blanking it right now. But what is it? The oath, the Hippocratic Oath.
Hippocratic Oath, yeah.
You would assume, like, when you talk to somebody who's going to be working with your finances, you might want them to be a fiduciary, where they're actually looking out for your best interest and not just trying to make a profit on you. It's something in the economic field. They're having arguments about how you define somebody as whether or not they're actually working with your money for your best interest in the fiduciary, or if they're a non-fiduciary and they're a salesman of economic products, their name can be the same. I think that'd be very important in this field too, to know that you're working with somebody who's a salesperson and not a doctor.
And have a clear statement of informed consent. So I believe that naturopaths, the way that they are licensed currently, and the way that they sort of sell themselves, cannot really provide true informed consent, because they are misrepresenting their education and their training, and also because there isn't, language in how they describe what they do that will let the patient know that under naturopathic care, in my opinion, based on the training and the way that I've seen naturopaths practice, that they might actually have missed diagnoses, or that pursuing naturopathic care might delay treatment for something that is treatable. And this, of course, can have really poor outcomes, like, of course, with the Steve Jobs example. And that, sort of best case scenario, it doesn't harm them, but it could waste time and waste money. And so until we start to see language in how naturopaths describe themselves as like, listen, if you're getting care from me, I want you to know that I'm not trained like a medical doctor, and I might miss a diagnosis because I haven't seen thousands of patients and done thousands of hours of clinical training like a real medical doctor. I haven't seen enough healthy people to be able to easily and clearly distinguish healthy from sick. I may not recognize red flags of an acute asthma attack or a heart attack or meningitis because I haven't seen any patients with this. As long as you understand that, then you're welcome to get care.
And not only that, I work for an organization that can't collect data from the thousands and thousands of other physicians who are seeing those thousands of cases themselves and sort of conferring and coming up with better and more effective ways to diagnose and treat. Yeah.
I think there's a big issue here. Like I think you're right. There needs to be either language that specifies things or very specific rules on, okay, what are naturopaths allowed to treat? What is, it's say with homeopathy. Sure, it's not going to hurt a person to take a homeopathic cold medicine versus a regular cold medicine. You're going to have the cold for basically the same amount of time. But if you start trying to treat AIDS or cancer with homeopathic treatments, you might kill somebody. And that goes against the the instruction of care, which I believe that people, like when you went into it, you wanted to help people. You wanted to do something natural. You wanted to help them in a natural way. So it's not like people want to go into it wanting to hurt people, but there needs to be some kind of limitation to what naturopathic treatment actually can be. What is the scope of practice? How far does it go? And what is actually allowed? Like, what does science show works? Or, what do we know doesn't necessarily hurt you? I don't know. I think, do you fall in line with this way of thinking, or is it
Definitely
more?
I agree. I 100% agree. The problem that I see with trying to implement something, because it seems like a pretty simple solution, let's just come up with an agreed upon definition.
Let's make a spreadsheet. Sorry.
Get laser pointers out and we'll start directing people.
Yeah.
So naturopaths have different licensing and scopes of practice depending on the state that they live in and are practicing in. And so when I was in Arizona, for example, I was allowed to call myself a physician. I actually could call myself a naturopathic medical doctor. I had a DEA number. I could call in prescriptions. I could recommend medical marijuana. So I had a huge scope of practice. And this is in comparison to a state like Michigan, for example, who is currently trying to license naturopaths. And then in Alaska, for example, naturopaths are not allowed to diagnose or treat patients, but they're licensed. So there's a huge variability. And so it's really hard to sort of talk about naturopathy as one thing. And insurance companies have, of course, their end goal is to save money, and so they actually have pretty strict and clear guidelines around, what naturopaths should do and whether or not they're going to cover something like homeopathy or something else in the alternative care toolbox.
Right.
But naturopaths are now arguing that it's sort of discrimination by the insurance company if their services are not covered under the claim that they are trained just like primary care physicians. So it's really tricky, and I think having a consensus agreement on the scientific medical side will be easy. Getting naturopaths to fall in line with this, of course, is not. And as long as states are licensing naturopaths, there's sort of a legitimization of what naturopaths are doing. And once they get licensed in a state, then it seems to be a pretty slippery slope to then the situation that I was in Arizona, where before you know it, I'm calling myself a medical doctor and no one will know the difference.
Is there a point when somebody crosses the threshold of that drinking the Kool-Aid and wanting to help people to realizing perhaps they've invested a certain amount of time and effort into something that is now just the way they're going to pay a mortgage, and so the actual effectiveness of it stops mattering?
I think so. I don't know this because, my coming out of walking away from naturopathy was different. But I hear from a good number of licensed naturopaths who either contact me anonymously or contact me and say, please don't ever tell anyone I contacted you. But I totally am in agreement with you. Unfortunately, I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have a private business loan to run this practice that I can barely keep alive. Yeah. And perhaps like me, they spent $250,000 on their education, and they cannot walk away from those financial commitments.
And then there's also the interesting aspect of the industry in itself, trying to align itself with medical doctors. I mean, I think this is what Ben Carson was promoting, was some sort of micronutrient that hasn't shown that it's got any actual effectiveness, but he was paid handsomely to come in as a neurosurgeon and say that he himself has even used this product and it's so amazing and wonderful. So then it leaves behind those that were attracted to it for its anti-medical industry affiliations, and sort of says, no, you who've been believing in medicine, yes, this also, we have doctors who are behind this, but why then not have that whole layer of research that goes into determining how, what, and why it's affecting? And because we've already got a doctor who is at the end of this who's saying that it's great, so we didn't need to do any of it because it's all about testimonials.
It's a big, stinky onion with lots of complicated layers, because it's so heterogeneous, who is in the field and why they're in the field, and then who's supporting it. Like the Trump supplement pyramid scheme is another good example. So, people are either in it to make money, or they're in it because they're truly confused, or maybe conspiracy theorists, or a little bit of all of the above.
I think it's sales. I think I would call them salespeople. I really would. It's sort of like if you've ever met one of these diet fad thing people where they're going to sell you their diet thing exclusively, and then they've got a ton of testimonials, and then there's group activities with other people who are also only eating this product on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Mm-hmm. It does have, as a professional salesperson, it looks like sales. It looks like sales. The pitches are product pitches. They're sales pitches. No, your doctor doesn't pitch you on a product when you need to take a drug. They don't start with, let me do a 10-minute presentation on this wonderful new drug that you're going to be taking that's going to fix everything in your life. They don't do this, right? But if you hear the sales, no, I'm not talking about a TV commercial. I'm talking about when you're in there with your doctor in the office. Maybe it's happened to you.
I think it depends on who your doctor is.
You need a new doctor, because your doctor shouldn't be enthusiastically excited about your anti-inflammation medication. He shouldn't be like, monorail, it's going to change everyone.
I'm not going to stand here and pretend that the pharmaceutical industry is not without fault in that arena, because it is. Right. And there are doctors that get kickbacks for certain drugs, things like that. So that's not without blame.
Sure.
Not without, but when if your
Justin
doctor
just is saying he recognizes his own kind.
Yeah,
I recognize the sales pitch.
What I was thinking about too is that naturopathy, there's elements of it that really scare me very much, like injecting things into your body that shouldn't be there. But there's other parts of naturopathy that probably could work in unison with medicine that would not be a deleterious effect, like what? Like acupuncture, like nutrition. There's elements of it that I think is not without its own place, but it more needs to be discussed as an enhancement, not as a replacement.
So you're sort of talking about complementary care.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
and so,
I want to point out that nutrition and lifestyle changes and exercising and stress reduction techniques, in forms like meditation or even biofeedback, are all part of real medicine. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have to pay for an alternative provider to provide this sort of, like, the basic essentials to health. And but there is this idea that my doctor doesn't know anything about nutrition, or my doctor doesn't spend time with me, and he's not going to tell me how many minutes per week I really should be exercising. And I get that, and part of that is, this image, and it's true, that your physician is hurried and doesn't have the time to spend with you. But this is changing. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it opened up sort of a niche market for naturopaths to jump in to say, we spend time with the patient. We look at the patient holistically. We're really going to ask you every single thing that you've ever eaten in the last 72 hours. And they do. I used to spend an hour with my patients and sort of just get down to this nitty-gritty detail of, like, well, did you have soy sauce? Because there might be wheat in your soy sauce, and we need to talk about that.
Yeah, and as much as we've been learning about how the microflora of the gut are really responsible for so many of our reactions to, regardless of the nutrients that go in, that it really, we know now, the only thing that can cure everything is Dr. Justin, not real doctor, poo pills. Now, if you send for $19.99 today, we can have it to you by Thursday of next week. But yeah, like the nutritionist, the more, amazing thing about doing this show is hearing all of that we've been learning about microflora and its effects throughout the entire system of the body, that sometimes even trumps nutrition. It seems to trump what we eat to a great extent. So all of this is at the beginning of its knowledge, not the end of ancient wisdom on it.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that we're seeing a pretty big shift in too, is that a lot of your general practitioners now in-house, there are nutritionists. There are people that can talk to you about diet and about lifestyle and about exercise and all of these other things that I think, the kind of the silver lining of this is that things are getting a lot less clinical in standard medicine now, which is I think a positive thing for sure.
But not necessarily in naturopathy. And this is an important point. So naturopaths are, they have this reputation of being, awesome nutritionists, actually, and awesome, lifestyle experts. But a lot of the nutritional information that we're taught is actually not real nutritional information. And we're taking it and we are making a business model out of it. And so I had a bogus lab test that I would give to virtually any patient that would test food intolerances, which is a totally bogus testing system. It's called IgG, food antibody testing, and we called this food allergy. So we would confuse patients with the term allergy, thinking that leading patients to believe that they really can't eat this food, even though they're not having an IgE allergy reaction to it. They're having an IgG spike, which is normal. This means that your body is encountering, an antigen that it's seen before, and this is sort of a normal reaction. And using this and translating this into a naturopathic treatment plan. That, of course, included expensive supplements. Oh, and guess what? Follow-up visits, because now I need to see you every 2 weeks to assess your dietary habits and your bowel movements, and if you're nauseous, and did you get a migraine? Because that might be, the fact that you had an IgG spike to bananas. And so we have to be really careful about saying, naturopaths can deliver this sort of complementary, wholesome care of exercise advice and nutritional advice, because this information, even in a naturopathic context, is probably corrupted. And again, sales pitching.
Corrupted, yeah, and brilliant. I wish I could, based on your EGG here, you shouldn't even go near a Ford dealership. No, you will immediately break out in hives. You're allergic. Also, it says here you may have a weakness to your immune system when it comes to Nissan.
It's perfect. You might have a job, actually, Justin. You're going to get some phone calls.
Fantastic.
I'm allergic to overcharging you for this vehicle.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, that is sales pitchy stuff.
I have a question. What can I look for to recognize this kind of snake oil in my everyday life?
Yeah. Well, look for the word naturopath for one thing. Okay. And I know that's really just sort of a nasty comment. But if you see the word naturopath, you should be skeptical. And then, of course, you want to look for anything that is touted as natural, side effect free, and safe in conjunction with alternative. So you'll start to recognize the language and things like immune stimulating or holistic care, and typically this goes on a long string of words: natural, safe, effective alternative healthcare, side effect free approaches, get off your medications, root cause. This idea that a naturopath can find the underlying cause in a way that's different from a medical physician is sort of a key selling point. Or symptom suppression. Don't just take pharmaceutical drugs to suppress the symptoms, your body's natural healing. We need to look at the root cause. So come in for this food intolerance testing, and 16 visits later and $500 in supplements, you'll be healthy. Promise.
We're going to find the root cause of cancer. It's cancer that's the root cause of the cancer. That's what the cancer is.
And he was making promises like that. You just have to think around it a little bit. Think around it a little bit. Well, we have been talking for a very long time. Probably would like to get on with your very early morning, your day. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody out there, if you are interested in looking into it, her petition is at change.org called Naturopaths Are Not Doctors, Stop Legitimizing Pseudoscience. I will put the link to it in our show notes so you can find it. Additionally, her blog is NaturopathicDiaries if you are interested in joining her reading her wonderful output on naturopathic medicine. How often do you put up blog posts, Britt?
Oh, a little inconsistently lately because I'm headed into finals. But I try to go for every 2 weeks.
Awesome. And then finally, Britt has a Twitter account, and so from the Twitter account, you can follow stories that she posts related to the petition and also related to things that she is interested in and blogging about related to naturopathy. NaturoDiaries, at NaturoDiaries. Britt, thank you so much for joining us. I wish you the best in this area of work and also in your studies, so that yeah, at some point you're going to be doing some really amazing scientific research and publication yourself, I'm sure.
Once I'm off of the bottom of the totem pole, yes.
That's what happens. That's the way it works. Yeah. Get all the way, climb it. Got to climb it. Do the work. Yeah. So we are going to move forward. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Britt.
Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye. It's been a great conversation. Thank you. And now we have more science stories ahead. We have, I think, a story from Blair.
Yes.
What you got there?
Oh, just that you can't teach an old Kaka new tricks.
What a hoota, what?
Yes. A Kaka is a forest cousin related to a type of parrot in New Zealand, and younger versions of these Kakas are better at solving problems than the older birds in the same areas. So they did a few tests, and pretty much in every single one, the younger birds whooped the older birds. The first one was putting a block of wood over a feeding station. The birds had to figure out how to move the block. None of the birds over 3 years old were able to solve the problem. 40% of the younger birds did. The second one involved removing that plate in an unusual way. They actually had to go to the back and move it with their beak instead of the traditional stepping on a lever. Half of the younger birds figured it out. Only one of the adults figured it out. And in the third experiment, they had to do kind of the foot over foot to pull a cashew from a rope on a perch, and all of the younger birds were able to get to the cashew. Only half of the adults did that. So a couple things to glean from this is that one is that these birds, obviously the older ones, were less predisposed to learn new things. We don't know if that's environmentally caused, if that's genetic, what's going on in there. But this also kind of has a silver lining in that when there are drastic environmental changes, i.e. climate change, the younger generation might be able to figure it out and pull through.
Which would be pretty awesome. And I mean, it's good unless, of course, the older generation is better at reproducing.
There is that.
There is that. So always got to figure out the pros and the cons to everything. I've got some undead genes, zombie genes.
Brains.
The genes of zombies or genes that are zombies?
Well, genes that are zombies. It turned researchers were looking at tissue, blood and liver tissue from human cadavers, and also from what else? Who else did they look at? They looked at mice and fish. That they looked in this particular study. Previously, we've looked at blood and liver tissue from human cadavers, and we've seen that there are a few genes that are active post-mortem, after death. So this research team were like, hey, let's look at mice and zebrafish. Let's track genetic activity after death and see what is active. And so they tracked about 1,000 or more than 1,000 genes, and they found that there were hundreds of genes that after the organisms died, upregulated their activity. They got more active after death than they were before death. Which is pretty interesting. And
What are these genes related to?
Some of these genes were active during embryonic development. So it's like during death, they think that maybe some sort of state reversal happens and these genes get triggered again. that maybe like, oh, we're breaking down. No, we don't want to do that. Let's start building again. But they're running out of energy, so they're not
Maybe it's
really
like
going to.
they're like the backstage crew. Like they do the setup for the show, which is, embryonic stage, and then it's like, all right, tear it down, take down the lights, let's close the curtain, let's put everything away here.
Yeah. Some genes that became more active also are cancer genes that promote cancer and cellular division and growth. And so there's a question here as to the link between people who receive transplants from people who have died. They have an increased risk of cancer. And so it's very possible that these organs have upregulated cancer genes that are potentially triggering this cancer. So understanding this could give us some good clues at how to help people who get transplants. Might be good. Might be used at measuring the gene activity. They say could be used as a diagnostic tool for predicting the quality of a transplant. So it's a fascinating study, and it could also be used to help the police investigate time of death. Well, right now we estimate time of death based on,
Maggots.
Yeah, maggots and bugs and how long these things have been around. These little organisms that feed on the dead have been around, right? There's also cell phone messages and other different things. But if we can time which genes are active at what point after death, we could have a maybe much more accurate calendar to be able to use in investigations. So these researchers who have published this study are actually really excited, and they're like, oh, we need to study death a lot more.
Yeah.
We'll learn a lot more about life in death.
I think that's a good rule that we learn over and over on this show. We need to study death more.
Yeah. Let's see. Other quick news. We have Zika. The first human vaccine trial is getting the go-ahead from the FDA. It's a DNA-based vaccine. So it'll be segments of the Zika virus DNA that will be injected into a person, and then researchers could potentially use electrical pulses to get the human cells to take in the Zika DNA and incorporate it and start manufacturing Zika proteins. And then once the Zika proteins get produced by the body, then the body will have its immune response. And then if you ever get invaded by the virus, then you'll have an appropriate response to it. And so this vaccine people are very excited about it because pregnant women who want to get pregnant, it might be a good idea to get a vaccine together fairly quickly for that. Zika doesn't affect adults generally, but it's the birth defects in the fetuses that are an issue. And then additionally, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases is also working on another DNA-based vaccine for Zika that they hope to get started testing in late August. So we've got vaccines on the forefront. And then brain training industry, a recent study that was done, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, has kind of said these brain training companies like Lumosity, CogMed, and NeuroNation that promise that it's going by brain training yourself, you're going to get a higher IQ. It might be a bunch of placebo effect, really.
It's also a lot of low graphic intensity games. It's a lot of easily put together video games that you're playing. This is what's happening.
Yeah, so they did a meta-analysis. They did a review of a meta-analysis, and the meta-analysis concluded training could increase IQ scores by 3 to 4 points, which, okay, that's cool. And so this group went ahead and were like, okay, let's look at that and figure out the methods of how they got their volunteers. And they used similar methods to produce a study of their own in which they put up posters that used different language. One of the posters said, had words related to the actual effects, so basically psychologically biasing people to want to take part in the study. So brain training and cognitive enhancement. Numerous studies have shown working memory training can increase fluid intelligence. And their email was even gmubraintraining@gmail.com versus a flyer that said, email today and participate in a study. Need credits? Sign up for a study today to earn up to 5 credits. And then somebody's email address from the study authors. So they actually found that people that the people who self-selected themselves for the brain training and cognitive enhancement flyers with the language, they had more of an IQ increase than the people who went for the neutral language.
Every psych study is a study within a study within a study.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Placebo effect, and then, okay, so a placebo effect can increase your IQ a little bit, which is,
As long
that's
as
not
it
nothing.
works. As long as it works,
nothing.
I don't care.
This is going to make me smarter. Let's go take a test. If I just think hard enough about that I'm going to get smarter, maybe I'll do better on that IQ test.
And as everybody knows, nothing makes you smarter than this show. But what is this story? We have 2 moons? There are 2 moons now? Oh my goodness! Earth has 2 moons? Is this what your next story is, Kiki? Because I missed this one.
But it's not really 2 moons. We have a quasi-satellite.
What's a quasi-satellite?
People like to say 2 moons because that sounds cool. So our moon is called a natural satellite. A satellite is an orbiting object around our big object, right? Caught in our gravitational field. Natural satellite is one we didn't put there. We put lots of other satellites around our planet. But there have been lots of other quasi-satellites and suggested moons, like captured asteroids and other things through the years. And we actually had another quasi-satellite for about 10 years that kind of hung out with us and orbited with us for a while. And then it got caught by something else and drifted off. And so it's not our satellite anymore. But we now have an asteroid. It's called 2016 HO3. And this quasi-satellite is in an orbit around the sun. And in the way that it is orbiting around the sun, it is also caught in orbit around the Earth. So it is not really our satellite because it's really orbiting the sun, but the path it's taking is also kind of captured by our gravity, and it seems to really be captured.
How big is this thing?
It's tiny. No, it's little tiny. It's smaller than you.
Oh. Does it? Well, then it can still be a moon. Like, why not? Just a really tiny, cute little baby.
It's a cute little tiny moon.
Baby moon.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a little baby moon.
And it's really far away. It wanders about 100 times the distance of the moon away, and it gets as close as about 38 times the distance of the moon. So it's further away from us than the moon, but it's also not very big, but it's there. It's been captured by us.
It's smaller than Justin?
Well, no, it's not smaller than Justin.
Okay, because I would think that there would be just all sorts of small stuff floating around near us all the time.
So this study says
small stuff. Hey.
It's somewhere between 40 meters and 100 meters.
Oh, okay. That's slightly bigger. Slightly bigger than Justin.
It's bigger than Justin.
And could be that could be a planet killer if we interacted with it wrong.
It could, but it seems to be in a fairly stable orbit around the sun.
Then I call it moon.
Quasi-satellite. It's not a real satellite. It's just a
Luna Minor.
We'll just call it Quasimodo.
Quasimodo? Oh my god.
Quasimuno.
Quasimuno.
Yes, so it's it's not really our moon, but because of the way it's orbiting around the sun,
finders keepers. It's our moon now.
It's our moon.
We have a new sidekick.
new sidekick. But it's interesting because there have been many of these proposed, but this is the first one that seems to really have been confirmed and to have stuck, which is cool. Proof of concept. We could get other moons, and this is how. Hello, asteroid. Ta-da!
Actually, what we need to do is we need to land some sort of propulsion device on this.
This little tiny moon that we
Yeah.
no.
And then we can have it there as a backup plan in case the big asteroid or the comet that's heading towards Earth, we could launch it towards it, take it out. It could be our Earth defense system right there.
Okay, Kiki.
That's an interesting idea. So I'm done. Justin, do you have any more stories?
Last one I've got, using cognitive science theories. Northwestern University's Ken Forbes and his collaborators have developed a model that could give computers the ability to reason more like humans and even make, wait for it, moral decisions. Dun, 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 dun. Called the Structure Mapping Engine, or SME, the new model is capable of analogical problem solving, including capturing the ways humans spontaneously use analogies between different situations to solve moral dilemmas. Many artificial intelligence systems, they use the example here of Google's AlphaGo, rely on deep learning, a process in which the computer learns by examining massive amounts of data. By contrast, people and this SME-based system learn successfully from far fewer examples in moral decision making. For example, a handful of stories suffice to enable SME-based systems to learn and make decisions, as do people in psychological experiments. So if you sort of think about it, yeah, like a lot of what you needed to know in life you could have learned by kindergarten through Mother Goose, those parables. They have all these stories, like the kid who cried wolf, what is it, Peter, what's his name, Peter and the Wolf. The kid who cried wolf, you learn, like, yeah, if you give too many false statements, people will stop believing you, and that might, be bad for you later down the road. That sort of thing. So they've got this model, and they're going to use it for artificial intelligence to see if they can make it think more human-y. Of course, the question is what analogies are going in, but they've already successfully used it to do to do a couple of things. One was a vision-based problem, where it used visual cameras, I suppose, to sort of solve a problem, and another was it figured out a physics problem. But it's an analogy-based as opposed to a raw database, which is going to make this generation of robots more human-y thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, so and that'll be the really interesting thing. Are we we'll have multiple types of AI systems with different underlying learning systems, deep data diggers or more human-like analogy-based systems, and some of them we'll get along with.
Right.
I wonder if people will start asking their devices to make moral decisions for them.
Well, here's sort of what this is sort of interesting. Though I love the way that he describes this. He says, given a new situation, the machine will try to retrieve one of its prior stories, looking for analogous sacred values and decide accordingly. So to encourage research on analogy, Forbes' team is releasing the SME source code and a 5,000 example corpus, which includes comparisons drawn from visual problem solving, textbook problem solving, and moral decision making. So I think this is a really sort of fascinating. You could end up with like a philosophical robot.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm thinking
AI.
is you have to make a difficult social-based decision, and then later you can say, well, I asked the phone, and it told me that I should choose Dave's birthday party instead of yours. It's out of my hands.
My bot told me.
Yeah.
In fact,
Oh, people.
this is after the fact because I had set in my to-dos here in my scheduler to go to your party, but apparently my phone erased it. And wrote in some other person's party who I didn't even know, but I had a great time.
And this great time is now the end of the show. I hope you had a great time, just like we did. What a great interview today with Britt Hermes. I hope, I hope you learned something. I know that we did. It was a great conversation and some great science as well. But it's time for me to say thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Paul Disney, Kevin Parachan, Keith Corsell, Steve DeBell, Melissa Mosley, Jesse Moreno, Patrick O'Keefe, Jason Schneiderman, Rudy Garcia, Gerald Sorrells, Greg Guthman, Alex Wilson, Dave Neighbor, Jason Dozier, Matthew Litwin, Eric Knapp, Jason Roberts, Chris Clark, Richard Onimus, John Ratnaswamy, Byron Lee, E.O., Jared Lysette, Ulysses Atkins, Brian Condren, Dave Friedel, Jake Jones, Mark Mazzaros, Trainer 84, Edvardus Rimkis, Brian Hedrick, Cassie Lester, Patrick Cohn, Sarah Chavez, Layla, Bob Calder, Shane and Tara Ginsburg, Marshall Clark, Charlene Henry, Don Comarechka, Larry Garcia, Randy Mazuka, Ed Dyer, Tony Steele, Craig Landon, Daryl Lambert, David Wiley, Robert Aston, Nathan Greco, Hexator, Deborah Smith, Mitch Neves, Flying Out, John Crocker, Richard Porter, Christopher Dreyer, Marked, Sylvan Westby, Artyom, Pixelfly, Shuwada, Stephen B., Dave Wilkinson, Steve Mashinsky, Rodney Lewis, Braxton Howard, Phil Nadeau, Rick Ramus, Salgood Sam, Matt Sutter, Emma Grenier, Philip Shane, James Dobson, Kurt Larson, Stefan Insom, Michael George, Russell Jensen, Mountain Sloth, Jim Drapeau, Tara Payne, John Maloney, Jason Olds, James, Noah Wiles, Paul West, Alec Doty, Aluma Lama, Joe Wheeler, Dougal Campbell, Greg Porter, Adam Mishkan, Aaron Luthi, Marjorie, Paul Stanton, David Simmerly, Tyler Harrison, Ben Rothig, Colombo Ahmed, and Gary Swinsberg. Thank you for all your support on Patreon. If you're interested in supporting us, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Also, remember that you can help us out simply by telling your friends about TWIS. And on next week's show, we'll be back once again, recording live, broadcasting live online at 8 p.m. Pacific time on twis.org/live, and you can watch and join our chat room. But don't worry, if you can't make it, it's all good. You can find our past episodes at twis.org/YouTube or just twis.org.
Yes, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science somewhere in your iTunes directory, or if you have a mobile device, which is an Android, you can look for TWIS, the number 4 Droid, app in the Android marketplace, or simply This Week in Science in anything Apple Marketplace-y.
For more information on anything you've learned here today, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts as well as other listeners.
Or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twisminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twis.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in your subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from today's show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world, so I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand, and all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way, so everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy.
We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And this week in science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. I've got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. But how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we said, then please just remember it's all in your head. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science. This Week in 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 Science.
Oh. Uh-oh. I think Kiki's walked away and left the music playing.
I did not.
So,
It's the post-show, everybody.
Post-show. We've survived yet another episode of This Week in Science. So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
I feel like that interview was not just awesome, but I feel like it was long overdue. To have somebody who could really articulate what's going on in that field, it was really insightful.
Yeah, she was very well spoken and yes, very insightful, and that's why I wanted to talk with her.
Yeah.
I read her blog, and I looked at her tweets, and I read other articles that people had written about what she's doing, and I went, she's a good one to talk to.
It reminded me there was
This will be good.
this whole controversy that took place at the yoga studio. They were going to put in an ionizer or something. I don't remember what it was. Positive ions, something like this.
Oh yeah, positive ions, they're good for you. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
It might have been some sort of filtration system. I can't remember exactly what this little device was that was going to go in the yoga room. But some people were freaked out because they believed it was going to create ozone. And others were like, no, that's a good thing. Like it was this all. It never went in. It was like, this is too much. Like it might have been a filter. It might have been an air filter of some sort. An ionizing up. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it created this huge debate at the yoga studio to the point where it just couldn't be put in.
You don't want extra ozone.
Or you do, or you don't. But there was people arguing. But
it's an air pollutant, and it makes it hard to breathe.
But it might not have even done that. This is the thing. Like, it wasn't even
it might not even have given.
No, this is the thing. Like, it wasn't even like it said will produce ozone. No, it didn't say. But it was like the fear that it was just
based on zero science.
All of the entire drama about it had nothing to do with science, and it just didn't go in. It was like, okay, forget it. Just let's go and sweat and do yoga. Never mind.
Yeah, I went to my I'm in Oregon, right? So I went to my very first marijuana dispensary yesterday.
Oh,
Congrats.
I was with somebody, and they're like, "I'd like to go," and I was like, "Okay, I'll go check it out." And so I go into the dispensary, and they start talking about this CBD, high CBD, low THC, high THC, low CBD, blah 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 blah, cannabinoids and the endocannabinoids and blah, 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 all this stuff, and the guy who's selling the weed, he's like, because our body's filled with endocannabinoid receptors. We've been evolving with this stuff from years. We have to take it.
Yeah, you can't breathe without it. Right? Like, you can't even uptake oxygen properly unless you're totally stoned.
It took all of my self-control to just go stand in the corner and shut up. And then they offered my friend a taffy, a little edible.
Oh, that stuff's potent.
CBD, CBD cannabinoid, which is supposed to be the body relaxing effects and not the psychoactive high THC effects. So there's the CBD versus the THC. And so the CBD had a little label on it, and she had this little troublesome glint in her eye, and she's like, "Here, Kiki, look at this." And the little label said, "Anti-gluten."
Anti-gluten.
Not just no gluten in it, it was an anti-gluten taffy.
Like hunts down gluten and kicks it in the butt in your body.
I walked around and I was like, I need to leave this place right now.
And here's the thing too, and this is coming from somebody who's been in sales for a lifetime, right?
Let's just put two words together, and then people will be like, "Yeah,
it's marketing."
Corinthian leather,
and it lets you fill in all sorts of gaps to the information that's not there, and infill and overlay upon it anything that you choose, But you don't have to just look at these objective these obvious sales pitches. But you see it all the time in any kind of marketing, and politics is like horrendously filled with letting people imprint their idea of who the candidate is and what they actually mean when they say something like "making America great." Like, okay, that could mean completely different things to completely different people, but when they allow you to fill in all of the missing information in an enthusiastic way, this is sales, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if they just said, "Hey, marijuana
stops
anxiety,"
it would probably still sell. Like, I don't think they would. Like, I think they're trying too hard.
Stops anxiety, makes you ignore pain. Those are true.
Yeah, great. If you're nauseous, it helps
You'll finally get
maybe
reggae.
give you a diet.
You'll finally get why
make you
people listen
hungry.
to reggae music.
It gives you a serious mellow if you can't calm down. That's true. Yeah.
This one's been specifically formulated to give you extra paranoia.
Oh,
For those nights when you're really not sure that car driving down the street is trying to listen to your brain waves. Mm-hmm. This one will convince you.
Yes.
Oh, extra paranoia. That is totally what I want.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I want in a drug. Something that'll make me extra paranoid.
I want the thing that turns my brain off so I can go to sleep.
That's called... sleep doesn't even turn your brain off. You shouldn't be turning your brain off.
Oh, I had a crazy dream this morning. It was pretty funny. I dreamed that I had gotten a role, not the lead role, but like a very strong supporting role in a Disney-produced cartoon. I was voice acting in a Disney-produced cartoon, and I had a supporting role. And then everything was going really awesome. And then at some point we had to go get interviewed about it, and the whole cast was going to get interviewed, and I was a little late. And they were doing our makeup and hair on the way in to the interview, because it was
Okay.
an interview. It wasn't actually the cartoon. It was an interview about the cartoon.
Well, it's very important to have your makeup and hair done.
And
to be
so we
a
were
voice
getting our
actor.
makeup and hair done, and then I got in a huge fight with the makeup girl.
Oh
And
my
she
god.
messed up my
So-
makeup.
She made
and
you
I
look like a hooer.
I
what you
totally missed the part of the story where you took the taffy.
and I didn't never take the taffy. And when I woke up this morning, I was like, okay, so am I excited about getting the voice acting job, or am I pissed off about the bratty makeup artist? I don't know. Like, okay.
Oh my god.
I know voice acting does sound fun, except for right now.
Yeah. So
I
here's what we
could
need
voice
to do.
act as a little horse.
This is what we should do, is we should somehow get some people at Pixar to start listening to our show so that the three of us can have a cameo in the next Pixar film.
Yeah, okay.
Like they put Click and Clack and Sarah and Vinny in Cars.
Right?
It's not that far off to throw us into a Pixar movie. Man. So I have to tell you this
Tea factory. Wait, Dave Friedel dreamed that one of the TWIS cast walked through a tea factory with him.
Oh, Howard says, it's your dream.
It
That
must
it was,
have been.
wow, detailed dream. Did it turn lucid? So the
Kind
conversation,
of, because
conversation where you're trying to figure out why you were mad or what part you were upset with, was this when you woke up or was this during the dream? Because for me, that would happen during the dream.
no, during the dream, I actually made the choice to not be passive about the makeup artist's brattiness and to actually talk back to her and stand up for myself and so basically I lucid dreamed myself into a fight.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like, oh, morning dreams. Yay, morning dreams. And when I woke up, I halfway thought, I was like, can I just go back to sleep? I'm just going to lie down and close my eyes and finish the dream differently.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
I feel like I should fit it, but then Kai woke up, and so I had to wake up.
I hate that when you want to continue a dream and you can't. It's the greatest.
I know.
Difficult, yeah.
So I have to tell you a phenomenon I experienced in the South, you guys.
Oh, yeah. Okay, tell us about your southern trip.
So there were a few things that were cool that you might find interesting, but my favorite moment was I saw lightning bugs for the first time in my life, and they are the coolest.
They are cool. That's why people spend time chasing them and putting them in jars.
Yes. So I then had to do some research. So, first of all, they're winged beetles. They have something very special, which is that they have cold bioluminescence. Yeah. So they don't create heat when they create light, which is
Chemicals.
so cool.
It's like a glow stick, right?
Yes, exactly. So there's no infrared or ultraviolet frequencies. And there are about 2,000 species of fireflies, which I did not know. Their larvae emit light and are glowworms. I did not know that glowworms were baby fireflies.
Cute. Glowworms are also a really cute little toy.
That too. Or creepy is what I remember. I had a glowworm that had this really creepy face. I'm going to have to look that up now in a minute. But what my friend that I was visiting in the South told me that I then started doing all this research on was that fireflies talk to each other with their light up butts. So,
they do. Yeah, it's communication.
Yeah, it's like a Morse code situation. Yes, I had one of those. Terrifying.
They're so cute. What
It's
are
so
you
weird.
talking about?
I had the one on the top in the middle that's like dressed in pajamas. That has this. Yeah, that one. I had that one.
That one's a little creepy. Yeah.
That's the one that I had, and I forgot about it until you just reminded me, and now I won't be able to sleep.
Not as cute as those.
That thing is so creepy. Why?
Because
90s toys are weird.
Glowworm. Hey, glowworm.
Fireflies produce defensive steroids in their bodies that make them unpalatable to predators.
Well, that's interesting.
Larvae use their glow as a warning display to communicate their distastefulness. As adults, many fireflies have flash patterns unique to their species and use them to identify other members of their species. Female fireflies choose mates depending on specific male flash pattern characteristics. The higher male flash rates, as well as increased flash intensity, have shown to be more attractive to females in 2 different firefly species. Adult fireflies of some species are not luminous at all, however, and instead use pheromones to locate mates. And there are some species that use both pheromonal and luminous components in their mating systems. They're the coolest. I was running around and I was like, they're fairies! They're like real.
They're fairies. They're not
like real life fairies. They really are. 'Cause it's like it's like a fairy ring. It's the coolest thing. Oh my god, I got so excited. I also saw my friend defend her thesis or her dissertation, and she was approved.
Congratulations.
She's a doctor now.
Doctor.
When you two meet, you'll be able to say that to each other.
Doctor. That's one of my favorite things.
Doctor.
When I meet a doctor, a fellow doctor, having that conversation.
What was the movie? The spy movie? Oh gosh. No, not Spies Like Us. What was it called? I don't know. But it was doctor.
That's where it comes from.
Doctor. Doctor, not a real doctor. Doctor, not a real doctor. I'd have to keep throwing that in. It would be a longer version. It was Spies Like Us. Thank you,
Spies Like Us.
Instabrain chat room.
People were really surprised to hear I had never seen the fireflies before, but
they don't. There are none. There are none in California.
Is there really none in California?
I've never seen them.
Someone was talking to me, telling me they're in Mendocino, but that doesn't seem right to me.
I feel like I've seen them in Northern California, up in the Nevada City, North San Juan area, but that might not be true. That might not be true.
Well, I've never seen them.
That might not be true.
Until now.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. I've got to go.
Terrific. Did you have firefly tea in your dream, Dave Friedel? Firefly tea. What is Mike's comment? Oh my gosh. Panted ladies or painted ladies with
panted.
Mike?
I'm panted as we speak.
I'm skirted, so I guess I'm not toxic.
Okay, here we go. This was LA Times, June of last year. Never before seen species of firefly was just discovered in the... I now have to click on the article. Santa Monica Mountains of Topanga.
Where's that?
Well, so that is right along the coast in Southern California. It's a pretty urbanized area. Entomologists have known about fireflies in the region for a long time, but they're rarely seen or difficult even for the professionals to find. The entire collection has about 4 million bug specimens, and it goes back 100 years. That's all we found in the past century. Well, that seems like pretty good. So well, maybe that's where they all went. They were too good at collecting them.
I went to Topanga Canyon. We're going to take the 405.
They've been seen in the Santa Monica Mountains, Laguna Mountains in San Diego. They've also been spotted in the southeast slope of Mount San Jacinto in Upper Little Creek in San Bernardino County. So they can be in California.
Where I grew up, I never saw a one. So, you know. California's a lot bigger than just where I grew up.
Yeah, California is, in terms
It's
of...
kind of big as far as states go.
Yeah.
And
Large.
it's not just big, it's also, it takes up like the northern and the southernmost like coastal type regions of the it is the western seaboard, pretty much. Yeah, you got the Oregon and Washington eating up little bits of it at the top, but for the most part, it's like the whole side of a continent.
Ed, every time someone says fairies don't exist, Firefly dies.
Oh no.
Poor fireflies. We need to go on a firefly saving mission. Save them. No.
Dave right out. Also in my tea dream, the TWIS host had all kinds of opinions on leading a tour group. So just for a clarification for your next
Which
dream,
host was this?
it wasn't me. I guarantee you it wasn't me. When it comes to traveling, I absolutely know my place.
I think it would be Blair.
I pretty much was like, okay, you can read maps and figure out subway schedules. You're in charge of everything. I'm not.
Dave, did this dream take place on Sleepy Time Drive?
That's right, because who went to visit where Sleepy Time Tea came from?
What do you talk about?
I know.
What do you talk about? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Blair went to, what is the name of the tea company? She went
Celestial Seasonings.
She went to visit Celestial Seasonings. Yeah.
Bears or something on the Oh, yeah.
Use GPS to get there too. Oh my goodness. Where was that? Outside of Boulder?
In Boulder.
That's right, because you stopped and you didn't visit Dave. What?
Or did I?
Or did you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He drove me to the Sleepy Time Tea Factory.
Took you to visit Celestial Seasonings?
Yeah, we went in the mint room.
The mint room. Okay, that's what that was all about. Yeah. Not the mint room.
Yeah. Okay.
I got it.
The bear's out of the tea bag, Dave. They figured it out.
Yeah, and also if I ever disappear,
mint room?
Huh? If I ever disappear,
that's awesome.
First place you should look for me is just outside Boulder, Colorado, at the Naropa Institute for Disembodied Poets, because that's where I'm going to. That's my runaway spot. That's my bug out place. That's when I decide.
Disembodied poets?
Yeah, this is when I decide to bug out. That's where I'm going, Naropa.
Interesting. I've been to Boulder 3 times and never seen the tea factory.
It was pretty cool.
You're fascinating.
I found out that most of the teas that Celestial Seasonings makes are not teas because they don't have tea leaves in them. They are herbal infusions.
Yeah, it's
filled with Prozac.
Filled with Prozac, that's right. It's
and whatever it is they put in NyQuil that makes you sleepy.
It's like champagne can't be champagne unless it's from the Champagne region of France. Except, they use the same grapes and make it sparkling, and it has to be sparkling wine. Yeah.
Yeah, Corbel's the one exception. I was just at Corbel last month, and I was asking about that, and they got grandfathered in because they've been around for so long that when that was kind of decided, Corbell got to keep the name Champagne.
Yeah. No tea leaves. It's not tea. Yep. But you can still call it tea, just like I still call sparkling wine champagne.
Right.
Buck tradition.
Well, it's kind of like how you call all tissues Kleenex. Hand me a Kleenex.
Can I Xerox this?
Yes. Can I have a Ziploc?
Exactly. I'm going to Google this.
Can I have an interlocking sealable plastic bag, please?
That just does not roll off the tongue. And Blair Bass told me how she tells kids to get off her lawn.
Yes. Accurate.
Totally.
Why am I going to all these drink companies? I guess I'm a connoisseur.
Okay, Gem Doctor. Rems are épargnés, not champagne. Fine. But it's still a rule thing. It's a thingy. It's tradition.
What are you talking about? I keep getting lost. You guys keep
Follow-
talking
Sorry.
about stuff. I don't understand what you're talking about.
Following the chat room, we're having a conversation.
I'm watching the chat room, and I still don't. I have to admit, I thought champagne came from a specific region in France, or at least the grape did. Is that what?
Right, and that's what the Gem Doctor was specifying, a particular region.
Oh, but not. It's not actually Champagne. There's not actually a region called Champagne.
That's what the Gem Doctor is saying.
Well, he's got doctor in the name, so I trust him.
You should. Yes.
Right.
He's obviously a real doctor.
Yes.
I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
Yeah, well, if it was important, it'll come back to you.
Oh, I was going to say that Dave had to wear a beard cap. So I had to wear a hairnet. He had to wear a beard net when we went in the tea factory.
So you don't get hairs in the teas?
Yeah.
That would be gross. I don't know. I mean, they put the tea stuff, the herbal infusion stuff, in little bags, paper bags.
Yeah.
A little hair probably wouldn't change the flavor too much.
They don't trust you to not touch things.
That's good.
They did at the PBR brewery in Tumwater, Washington. They were like, self-guided tour. Have fun, kids. I don't think anybody was. Somebody might have been.
Can we see the selfie, Blair? Dave wants to see his selfie.
I was going to post it tomorrow for TBT.
There we go.
Here we go. Where is it? I was having trouble with my selfie methods. Oh, it keeps turning. Hold on. Right there. I'll post it tomorrow.
Oh, I could kind of see it there.
Yeah.
There's a little glare, but there it is. They hung out.
We did. We met in real life.
Cool.
Champagne is a sparkling wine produced from grapes grown in the Champagne region of France. Following rules that demand, among other things, secondary fermentation of the wine in the bottle to create carbonation. The Champagne region include Aube, Côte de Blanc, Côte de Sézanne, Montagne de Reims, and Vallée de la Marne. The towns of Reims and Épernay are the commercial centers of the area, but it is the Champagne region of France. So we were all right.
Everybody's right.
What can I do now, Gord? Oh, the TBT. No, I'm going to wait till West Coast time.
Yeah, it's still only 10:30 here.
Oh, yeah, there was a hairnet picture. I didn't even find that.
You took a hairnet picture, too. Awesome. Because you have to when you're wearing a hairnet.
Oh, my God. I'll post this tomorrow, too. Can you see it?
That's
There we
awesome.
Go.
You look like you're, I don't know, at a hospital.
About to take a shower. Yep. That's the deal. Oh, and then I went to Leesburg, Virginia on the way back. And I met up with the person who owns the couch that I will probably be sleeping on when we go to Baltimore.
That's awesome. Perfect. Yeah, I'm still working out the Baltimore details. More to come on that. Working it out. I'm looking at a bunch of pictures from a music festival I went to over the weekend. It was fun. People were crazy.
It's awesome. Oh, I'm getting sleepy, you guys.
It is 10:30. 10:30. Yeah, I'm tired too, and my voice is gonna go soon. And we lost Justin.
What happened to him?
I don't know. Did he go to sleep?
Probably not.
Did they just leave?
He'd do that on screen.
I know.
Dave, I don't remember these arrangements.
These arrangements? Did you make arrangements?
Apparently. I'm kind of feeling like a female banana fiddler crab at the moment.
Are you feeling trapped?
A little bit.
You're a little trapped.
Wait, did somebody mention PBR?
Oh, that's where you went. Now we know.
Okay, is it bedtime?
I think it's bedtime. Yeah. Justin has his PBR. Yeah.
I do think that we had more to talk about tonight, but I can't think of it now.
I don't think we do tonight.
We're still waiting on information about when we should be plotting for this road trip.
Road trip.
Road trip later on, say early November.
Plane trip?
Plane trip.
Airplane trip.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna. There will be some roads to get you to the airport.
Is this another thing? Does the chat room know what I'm mumbling about, or is this still under wraps for now?
Baltimore?
Yes.
We're working out details.
Okay.
Working out details.
So we have an announcement to make.
I'll hopefully have
but not
detail next week. I'm going to have a phone call in the next day or two.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Oh, Identity 4 is tired. Sleepy Identity 4. Yeah,
Good night.
It's a long day.
We'll let everybody go. We're going to come back here again, though, in the next week or so and do this again.
Yeah, we will.
Give or take 7 days.
Yes. I don't know if we give it or take it. It's kind of hard to tell.
We just experience it, and then it gets to the end of 7 days, and we do a show again. I know what happens. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
What's on Justin's shirt? Oh, yep.
No, it's a Doctor Who shirt.
I started working my way through my nerd violations.
I know, I saw that.
I haven't made it far through the book because I can't read while the plane's in motion, so I just read it.
Yeah, you were reading Hitchhikers.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I can't read while the plane's moving. It makes me sick.
So understand that this author that you're reading, Douglas, also was a writer for Doctor Who, starting with the Fourth Doctor, and interjected much of what has become the sort of Doctor's sense of humor. And the sort of quirkiness of being a time traveler throughout all time and space. His infusion of wit and humor really transformed the show, starting with the Fourth Doctor, and is something that's carried on and out even today.
Except for the most recent Doctor, because he's not very funny.
He is. I think he is. But, this is...
I think I've seen only, like, one. It was a double episode, but there was, like, only one real, like, what I thought of as Doctor Who episode this entire last season.
Well, I'm mostly really excited about this book because my favorite author of all time is Kurt Vonnegut. And what I've been reading so far is very similar.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
It's very similar to Vonnegut. And then you have to read it.
And then you have to read Tom Robbins.
Is it Tom Robbins or Tim Robbins?
Tim Robbins is the actor. Tom Robbins is the
I read a Tom Robbins book.
I love those. Love those books.
Which one was it? It was
Yeah, one of his books starts with a description of blue and green algae, I think. As being responsible for this is where the story starts.
Yeah, Fierce Invalids Home from Hot Climates. I read that when I was in high school.
Gosh, something and other roadside attractions.
Oh yeah.
Something else.
Well, the good thing is, if I like Hitchhiker's Guide, there's 6 of those. So I'll have 6 books to read.
Sort of, but I think if you're reading Hitchhikers, you have
3 Hitchhikers books, and then some good Tom Robbins books. And I'm gonna go to bed now. Okay.
As I was looking through the Douglas Adams books at the bookstore where I bought it, and which one was it? One of them? Maybe it was The Universe and Everything, or whatever that one's called. It said right inside the front cover, book 6 of 3 of the Hitchhiker's Guide.
That's great.
That's Chronicles.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. All right.
Lots of good geeky books to read. I like geeky books.
I just have to have time to read now.
That's what you stay up late and do. And then you wake up and you're tired the next morning, and then you're like, oh, but I want to read my book. And you stay up late again and you read.
This doesn't sound healthy to me.
I know, but it's so nice.
I'm already struggling to get 7 hours.
As my vision continues to get worse, I get more and more frustrated with reading. So we're gonna have to do a new segment on the show, which is
I read you a story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like we'll create an audiobook company, right? But really, it's Blair reads to Justin.
It's just Blair reads to Justin.
Yeah. I could read you a fart book right now.
On that note, everybody.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Good night.
Good night,
Thank you for
everybody.
joining us
Everybody.
again. Au revoir, adieu, good night. Come back again now, you hear?